Welcome to Pimpy's Investment Chat, where we keep investment talk simple. And here's your host, Pimpy.
What is going on out there, peeps? I'm reading more and more articles that Iraq is struggling with the exchange rate between the US dollar and the Iraqi Dinar. And some measures were having to take place in order to stabilize the Iraqi Dinar. People don't know this, and I've done videos about this in the past. The United States actually and literally has a right to interfere in international markets as it deems necessary to control the markets around the world. When I read this as part of the Federal Reserve's job, it just blew my mind. I didn't realize how much power the Federal Reserve had. They actually have the right to control other markets around the world. This is part of their agreements. So I don't know how they ended up with that kind of control and how they ended up with that kind of power. But if that's the case, you would think that things would be a lot more kumbaya unless the powers that be have nefarious plans behind this. They're crushing currencies all around the world, forcing people into this new world order. More and more people on YouTube are starting to speak about this. So when they talk about Iraq's banking sector being able to connect internationally with places like Germany and France, who are all aboard on what's going on in Britain, you can see the bigger picture here. As much as I keep thinking the world is slowly slipping through the fingers of this great reset, then you see them aggressively taking steps necessary to push us in that direction. So let's go ahead and move forward and read some of these articles, because if the world, for some stupid reason, agreed to let our Federal Reserve, and not just the world, but our own country here in the United States, let our own central bank control markets around the world, that's pretty scary power. They have what's called the stabilization of exchanges or something like this. I'll find it again and I'll bring it up in another video. But I read it thoroughly all the way through, and they actually can control different countries' exchange rates, either by destroying the US dollar to make it less available or to increase the amount that they have. It's really crazy because we see that taking place now. Before we get started, do me a favor and hit the thumbs up button. And if you're not a subscriber, please do so, because when you do, it helps out the channel, and I certainly do appreciate it. If you're thinking about buying gold and silver, head on over to our friends at Money Metals Exchange. The link will be down below in the description. If you are a first-time buyer and you spend more than $100, use promo code Pimpy Silver. Yes, it has changed. PIMPY-SILVER. So if you're watching this video and it's an older video, make sure you check on current videos, because the code is going to be changing from time to time from now on. Also, I can be found on other platforms. Everybody knows I have my own website, Pimpy's News Network. Over here, I post videos that I can't get away with over on YouTube. Also, I have a group on Facebook called Pimpy's Investment Chat. Over here, we do talk about gold, silver, cryptocurrencies, as well as foreign currency investments. Come on over here and join us. It's free to do so. You can also come follow me on Twitter, MeWe, YouTube, and Odyssey. The links for all these platforms will be down below in the description. So for whatever reason, if I get removed off of one platform, you could find me on the others. Now, as much as I like to think that I am immune from suspensions because of the change in the name of my YouTube channel, I should have more freedom to talk about whatever. It's interesting, the subjects that I keep getting in trouble for, I can find plenty of people talking about them out there on YouTube. Some of them are big YouTube channels. Mark Dice talks about the same things I do. Nothing ever happens to that guy. I'm not saying he's never been suspended. He has. But he does get away with a whole lot more than I do. So does Russell Brand. People like that. So I think it's interesting that my last suspension was just me regurgitating a mainstream media article. That's how I got in trouble. It's crazy. Anyways, when a suspension happens, you'll know, because I won't put out videos for at least a week, maybe 2 weeks. Because that's what they do. They suspend you for a week. If you do back-to-back violations, it'll be 2 weeks. And on your third one, they just remove your channel, obviously. Anyways, over here in Iraq, very interesting steps taken right now to do what they can to stabilize the exchange rate. But you can see right here, the World Bank is warning Iraq of the very things I spoke about in the past. I keep hearing from everybody out there in the YouTube world, no, man, all it takes is just the sale of the oil in order for us to change the exchange rate, which is a lie. You can see right here, this is a warning from the World Bank about other things that Iraq has to do, or they're going to crash and burn. They have to get away from relying so much on oil. But there are some things in this article that should catch your attention. A warning from the World Bank of Iraq: reduce your dependence on oil. It said the World Bank warned Iraq against relying entirely on oil and the need to move towards the other sectors. Gee, that sounds familiar. The World Bank does not have detailed information or analysis about the fluctuation of oil prices in conjunction with global changes as a result of moving to a less carbon-emitting global economies, said the person who's in charge of sustainable development programs at the World Bank. It's funny because these people dictate policies of other countries. Why is other countries listening to these people? You're supposed to be a sovereign nation. They don't tell you what to do. You're supposed to work with your citizens and decide together. So RONA added that the demand for gas has begun to decrease as the world has begun to turn to its transformational source and to replace it with clean energy such as sun and air. No, it's not that they're trying to make a change. They're being forced into it. We're being manipulated into it. And if people don't stand up against this crap, the people that's going to be asked out are your common Joe and Joan citizens around the world. Why are we allowing a handful of people to dictate to us what each nation should and shouldn't do? And RONA indicated that the decrease in demand is offset by the decrease in the price of petroleum materials. And therefore, a country like Iraq that depends entirely on oil will also decrease its revenues, noting that the Climate and Development Report that was issued recently confirmed that there is a huge amount of investments that Iraq must make. Like how it says that must make, not should make or should consider making, must make. Anyways, on the scale of adapting to climate change such as water, agriculture, and within the framework of the strategic shift to alternative energy such as the sun and air in Iraq to more than 31% of the production capacity by 2040, and thus requires many investments, whether at the near or medium levels. RONA warned that in the event of low oil revenues and the lack of direction towards these sectors, these requirement investments during the near stage, there will be no opportunity to adapt to global changes. So people are like, well, Pimpy, the Tigris River and everything is drying up, blah, blah, blah. Well, do you ever think about the 400 dams that were built over there in Jordan or Syria? They're actually holding the water up. I heard Economic Ninja today, really just repeating a lot of stuff I spoke about in the past. No, I'm not saying that he's copying me or anything. I'm just saying it's nice to see other people talking about it. But he spoke about a lot of things that I spoke about in the past. This New World Order push to get everybody to go in one direction. And I told everybody what their plan was to put us in lockdown, let you have some freedom, turn around and put you in lockdown again. They're going to keep doing it over and over till they bankrupt you, until they break you. That has been the plan all along, and it looks like we're going right back into it once again. Does the U.S. Federal Reserve intervene to reduce the exchange rate of the dollar in Iraq? Yes, it should and can. It says Ali Tamimi said that the United States is obligated to help Iraq economically and in times of crisis, especially when the price of the dollar rises, which Washington controls through the U.S. federal system. Al-Tamimi added that in a statement that according to the bilateral agreement between Iraq and the United States of America for the year 2008 and Article 27 of it, the United States of America committed itself to assisting Iraq economically and in times of crisis, especially if the price of the dollar, which is controlled by the U.S. federal government, and foreign remittance rise. Well, our country's made all kinds of commitments. You could just talk to the people over in Afghanistan how those commitments worked out for them. He stressed that Iraq can approach America by implementing this agreement directly or through the United Nations, as this agreement is international and deposited with the United Nations under Article 102 of the Chapter of the United Nations. He continued, the United States of America is obligated under the Fourth Geneva Convention to help Iraq, as it is an occupied country, and according to this agreement, it is obligated to help this country that occupied it. So as the US dollar is being used to crush currencies around the world, you're looking at Iraq saying, hey, why don't you help us? Well, you know what, Iraq, you can help yourself. It's real simple. Decrease oil production, demand that they pay in Iraqi dinars instead of US dollars, and do like Russia did. So it's real simple. Buy gold from the central bank above the premiums that they're paying for it. They'll sell it to you. Sell your oil at a discount, but it must be paid in Iraqi dinars. Take that money and buy gold, as much of it as possible, moving yourselves into the gold standard. What do you think is keeping Russia's economy afloat? The media likes to tell us that over there they're suffering. Oh no, there's people from Russia posting on YouTube their daily lives going to the store. They said, we're not affected at all. Representative Mustafa Sadad on Sunday accused America of leading international colonialism and blackmail against Iraq by causing a rise in the exchange rate of the dollar, criticizing the silence of the political blocs on this matter, because they want Iraq to increase their production of oil to help keep the cost of oil down in the United States. Again, stop letting them bully you, Iraq. Sorry, I love my country and all, but the governments that have been in charge over the last couple of decades, that's not what we want here in our own country. So Ned said the rise of the dollar these days is completely different. It came because of America itself, without a mediator, and the purpose is to prevent the dollar from entering Iraq in the first place for the purpose of punishing it lightly, and is waiting for the dialogue table in early 2023 for the purpose of understanding about hot files such as the Iranian file and the file energy and the futures of U.S. forces and security agreements. So once again, the United States is bullying yet another country. And this is why countries around the world are getting ready to de-dollarize. There's a popular dissatisfaction with the rise in prices in the Iraqi markets after the exchange rate of the US dollar rose against the Iraqi dinar at the time when the Iraqi streets were waiting for the government's decision, leading to the return of the exchange rate to its previous state. Well, it's easier said than done. You can see right here it says, however, Iraq's economists question the justification of the Iraqi central bank, pointing to fears of a possible continuation of the increase in exchange rate during the coming period, which may mean that Iraq enters a new phase of inflation, especially with its dependence on imports for everything. Well, if that's the case, and I said this before and I'll say it again, look, if your country at the time is rebuilding and you really don't have a lot of things to export, what you might consider doing is increasing your exchange rate since you're importing more than you're exporting. This gives you a lot more purchasing power, and then you just buy and bulk up and store up on all the things you need and then reconsider adjusting the exchange rate down the road. But meanwhile, you can get all the materials you need from other countries for food products, medicine, schools, infrastructure. It's just a thought. Experts point out that what was known as the theft of the century had consequences that affected the movement of liquidity and remittance and prompted an unjustified increase in exchange rate. Yeah, gee, who didn't say that was coming? I know when I said it, people are like, no, that's not going to do anything. I was like, yes, it is. Are you nuts? The biggest problem that people had internationally with Iraq is the corruption, money laundering, financing of terrorism. Government's not stable. The people keep rising up in protest. I mean, there's many things that are going wrong over there. Having said all that, they've come a long ways. They really have. But nothing is worse than you're trying to do what it takes to get your country back on a level playing field, and then you got the United States screwing with you. That just makes it worse. Said a new decline in the exchange rate of the dollar in the local markets. So, look at this. The exchange rate of the dollar had touched 1,600 dinars for every dollar at the beginning of this week. That's the wrong direction. But there was an article earlier that said they stabilized it. So Al-Sudini said the government is working to make Iraq an attractive environment for investment in various fields, which is good. This is exactly what we want. You want outside investors there, but outside investors aren't going to come and invest in a country if there's no stability there or there's no electricity there. And that's just to name a couple of things. So this was just yesterday. Al Rafidian Bank announces the reduction of the exchange rate of the dollar to 1,455 dinars for every dollar. That's what they're talking about. That's where it was set at when they devalued the Iraqi dinar in the first place. And now they're making the exchange rate change again to 1,455 dinars. And that article said they're doing exactly what they didn't want to do. They're having to sell Iraqi dinars for US dollars. So the country now has dual currencies, which I said was not what they should do. But I understand what they're trying to do. The assumption was that they're trying to destroy as many of the Iraqi dinars as possible, meaning there's less of them out there. Think supply and demand, the value would increase for the Iraqi dinar, the more people needed them. But the article I just read previously told you that, one of the things that the United States is doing is trying to move US dollars into Iraq. That's a bully move. That's not what you want. Look, Iraq, it's real simple. Look what it is that Russia did. You really want to get even with the United States, go to OPEC Plus and then say, look, all nations involved in OPEC are now going to move into the gold standard. And that would truly screw over the United States. Don't get me wrong, I don't want to be screwing over my country, but what I can't stand is the corrupt government that's in there. Hopefully what that would do is then cause such an uproar that people then would get the corrupt governments out around the world, and then we can go back to talking about what is necessary for everybody to get on a level playing field. But yeah, that's been most of the news. The concern about the exchange rate between the US dollar and Iraqi dinar. Iraqis do not have modern bank accounts, and the underdevelopment of the banking system pushes them to save in homes, which is one of the things I spoke about before. As you can see, Iraq is still struggling to do what is necessary to stabilize the exchange rate. But a big part of that has a lot to do with the Biden administration screwing with them. They want them to increase productivity of oil. They're not saying it in these articles, but it's clear as day. That's what he's doing. He's sending a warning to them. They have the power to crush your economy. They're doing it already around the world. Despite agreements, they'll go ahead and do it to the contrary just because they can. Anyways, that's it for now, you guys. Let me know what you think. I'll look forward to your comments, and I will catch you later. I'm out.